The island where people change countries twice a year. Imagine standing on an island where your national identity changes, not because you moved, but because the land beneath your feet quietly shifted from one country's control to another. One day, you're in France. 6 months later, without taking a single step, you're in Spain. No border guards, no passport stamps, just an invisible shift in sovereignty. This is not science fiction. It's the true and fascinating story of Pheasant Island, a small, uninhabited patch of land in the Bidasoa River with one of the most unusual political arrangements on Earth. For more than 3 centuries, this island has been jointly owned by France and Spain, but only one country governs it at a time, and every February and August, that control switches. Today, we're going to uncover the history, the politics, and the enduring symbolism of this tiny but extraordinary place. Pheasant Island, or Isla de las Faisanes in Spanish, and Ile des Faisans in French, sits quietly in the middle of the Bidasoa River. The river flows from the Pyrenees Mountains to the Bay of Biscay, forming part of the natural border between France and Spain. The island itself is small, only about 200 meters long and 40 meters wide. You could walk across it in less than a minute. There are no buildings, no permanent residents, and no public access. From the banks of the river, you can see its thick green trees and the occasional bird, but you can't step foot on it unless you're an official. In fact, much of its mystery comes from the fact that it's so off-limits. Yet despite its size, Pheasant Island has witnessed royal meetings, peace treaties, and centuries of diplomatic ritual. To understand why this tiny island became so important, we need to go back to the 17th century, a time when France and Spain were bitter rivals. For decades, they fought over territory, influence, and power. The conflict eventually became part of the broader 30 Years' War, one of the most devastating conflicts in European history. By the late 1640s, both countries were exhausted. War had drained their treasuries and their people. The Bidasoa River region, in particular, was a flashpoint. Troops clashed repeatedly along its banks, and border disputes were constant. In 1659, the two kingdoms finally agreed to negotiate peace. But where could they meet? Neither wanted to set foot on the other's soil. The solution was simple yet symbolic. Meet in the middle, on a small, neutral island in the river. That meeting on Pheasant Island led to the signing of the Treaty of the Pyrenees in November 1659. The treaty ended the war between France and Spain, redrew the border along the Pyrenees Mountains, and even arranged a royal marriage. The French King Louis XIV would marry Maria Theresa of Spain. The marriage, intended to cement the peace, was itself negotiated on the island. In 1660, the young king and his bride met there for the first time in a lavish ceremony attended by nobles, diplomats, and soldiers from both nations. From that moment on, Pheasant Island became more than just a place on a map. It became a symbol of diplomacy and reconciliation. As part of the treaty, France and Spain agreed that the island would be jointly owned, a concept known as condominium sovereignty. But they took it a step further. Instead of governing it together at the same time, they would take turns. France would control it for 6 months, then Spain for the next 6 months. The handover happens twice a year. During each changeover, local officials from both countries gather, flags are swapped, and documents are signed. No arguments, no disputes, just a quiet exchange of authority, repeated for over 360 years without interruption. You might be imagining what life would be like living on such a place, but the reality is, no one lives there. The island is uninhabited and closed to the public. Its small size, seasonal flooding, and delicate ecosystem make permanent settlement impractical. Instead, it is maintained as a historical monument and a symbol of peace. The alternating control ensures that neither country builds anything permanent there. Even today, if you tried to visit without permission, you'd be politely, but firmly, told to leave. In the modern era, the island's political significance has faded, but the tradition continues. Every 6 months, a short but formal ceremony is held. The mayors of Hendaye in France and Irun in Spain sign the paperwork, and the island's flag changes. It's a simple ritual, but it reminds both sides of their shared history and their commitment to peaceful coexistence. In a world where borders often divide and disputes can escalate quickly, Pheasant Island is a small but powerful example of cooperation. Pheasant Island is tiny, uninhabited, and easy to overlook. Yet it carries more than 360 years of history, diplomacy, and peaceful compromise. It shows us that borders don't always have to divide, sometimes they can unite. Twice a year, the island changes hands without a shot fired, without a disagreement, and without disrupting the lives of those nearby. In an age when territorial disputes dominate headlines, this little island in the Bidasoa River quietly reminds us that there are other ways to share the world. That's the story of the island where people, or at least the flags above them, change countries twice a year. While Pheasant Island is physically inaccessible to ordinary visitors, its story resonates far beyond the banks of the Bidasoa River. In schools in both France and Spain, the island is sometimes taught as an example of diplomacy done right, proof that even centuries-old rivalries can be set aside for cooperation. Some historians point out that the continued handover is less about practical necessity and more about honoring tradition. It's a way of saying, we remember what happened here, and we're committed to preserving peace. This symbolic act has even inspired other regions with disputed borders to consider similar cooperative arrangements, though few have managed to replicate the peaceful rhythm maintained here for more than 3 centuries. A quiet future for a quiet island. Looking ahead, it's unlikely that Pheasant Island will ever become a bustling tourist attraction or change its rules. Environmental protection laws in both countries make sure it stays as undisturbed as possible, and the alternating stewardship means neither side can exploit it for development. In a way, that's what makes it so special. It exists outside of modern noise, untouched by the rush of progress. As long as France and Spain maintain their tradition, this little island will continue to pass quietly between them twice a year, like a handshake across time. And perhaps, that's the greatest lesson Pheasant Island offers. That sometimes, the most powerful statements in history are the quietest ones. And that's the fascinating story of Pheasant Island, a place where history still changes hands twice a year. If you enjoyed this journey into one of the world's most unusual borders, don't forget to subscribe for more stories about hidden places, strange histories, and the secrets most travelers never see. Click the like button if you learned something new today, and share this video with someone who loves discovering the world's curiosities. Until next time, keep exploring, the truth travels far.